Welcome to episode 7 of Pinnacle FC, our vacation time. That's done and dusted, but we're well rested and ready to get back at it after the international break. Gareth Wheeler, Jake Osgathorpe with you on this podcast. We deal with the biggest games in European domestic football. We span from England to Spain to Italy and beyond. Jake, how was your vacation?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, loved it. Had a great time out in South Korea, just exploring, eating, drinking, just chilling out, relaxing. Still managed to catch a bit of football actually. Unfortunately, one of the only games I got to watch in full was Aston Villa versus Manchester United.
Oh,
So
lucky
a
you.
nice goalless draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
That wasn't a good way to spend your time. I was at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and it was absolutely brilliant hanging out with Mickey Mouse. But my picks and plays this week will be anything but Mickey Mouse. Let's put it that way. So let's get straight stuck into this weekend and all of the lines that we use. Obviously, the best in market courtesy of Pinnacle. And let's start off in the Premier League. The fixture of the weekend goes on Sunday afternoon. It's top of the table Liverpool as they face fourth place Chelsea. Both are in really good form heading into this fixture. Yet the international break, what that does, what that means, some question marks surrounding that. You have Chelsea down a couple of their players. Cucurella is suspended this weekend. I believe Colville is actually suspended as well ahead of this one. Going to Anfield, a daunting task these days, but I just wonder how you look at this one. Liverpool favored, a considerable favorite here at minus 144, plus 327 for the draw, plus 330 for the away win for Chelsea. The handicap is set at 0.75 and the total set at 3.25. How are you looking at this game? Because Chelsea have kind of shown something in recent weeks. They've really looked a dynamic team and really coming together very nicely, very quickly under Maresca as well. How are you looking at this game this weekend?
Yeah, I'm finding it very difficult to kind of put my finger on who I think is going to win. Obviously, Liverpool are rightly favourites, but I don't know if there's any juice in the price. And I just, I just don't. I don't like Chelsea at the moment because they're so unpredictable. From a betting perspective, they're so unpredictable. Like they put on a really good poor performance at Bournemouth, managed to scrape out a win, then they go and blow the doors off Brighton, and then fail to convert chance against Nottingham Forest. So I'm finding them very difficult to trust whether backing for or against them. And Liverpool, you said they're top of the league there, but I think everyone's getting a little bit carried away with Liverpool and their potential title chances because they're 1 point above City and Arsenal, and they've had by far an easier schedule than the pair of them. They've played only one team who finished last season in the top 8, and that was Manchester United, who are one of the most dysfunctional sides at the moment in the league, and a team that have, they've had a good record against them in recent years. So I think there's, this is the first real test they're going to face in the league, and I think that we'll see them fall off over the next 5-6 weeks because I think this fixture list just get a little bit tougher, and I still think in the outrights there's some juice in Arsenal's price because they've had the toughest run of fixtures of all the teams in the league, I would argue, so far, playing away at Villa, City, and Spurs, getting those out of the way already, and they're only 1 point back. So I think the one thing we can rely upon with Liverpool heading into this game is that the way in which they're playing under Slot is very much a control over chaos. It's shown with the fact that they're conceding few goals, they're conceding few chances. The best defence in the league so far this season in terms of both XG and goals. So I'm actually looking at this and I want to oppose the goal line. Immediately my thought was either backing under 2.5 if the line was there, but it's actually at 3.5, and I'm really glad it is. Minus 129, we can back 3.5. It has moved a little bit to 3.25. But I'm going to take the shorter price at 3.5 and just avoid any half wins there. So that's the play. It's a bet that's landed in 5 of Chelsea's 7 league games so far this season. It's landed in all of Liverpool's 7 as well. So I think this is going to be a very interesting tactical matchup. Chelsea obviously have a lot of really good players in attack to kind of try and test Liverpool, and I think Liverpool will be very aware of that, and they'll tighten down even more so. And I think I'm actually going to have a smaller play on under 2.5 goals as well at plus 186, which just looks like a massive number. So I'm going to go under 3.5 as the main play and a smaller play on the bigger price under 2.5 and just cheer back goals.
I completely agree with you. I'm on the unders here. I'll take under 3.25. I think it's been pushed out to now minus 104. It was at even money, but you're right. That line is shifted. Liverpool, their home form, 13 goals scored, but just 2 conceded. And their 5.72 expected goals against at Anfield is the best. And that's the biggest difference between them playing under Jurgen Klopp into Arne Slot. They look very well organized defensively out of the gate. And at home, look at their results, like 2-0 Brentford, a 1-0 loss Forest, 3-0 Bournemouth. That would be the exception. I mean, I don't think that was really a 3-0 game, to be fair. 2-0 Bologna in the Champions League. So, and Chelsea, like, they're a team on good form right now. And I think you're right. I think they tightened things up because they're a team that looked pretty dynamic in attack at times. No losses in their last 7, but they are coming off that 1-1 against Forest. I'm just still not sure if they have enough accomplished goal scorers in the team. They have creative players who I think possess a threat, but do they have that finisher that's necessary, that's required to get over a bigger number at 3.25 at Anfield this weekend? So I like the under. The other angle I'm taking as well, potentially here, both teams have gone over in terms of cards, over 4.5 regularly early this season. Over 4.5 cards. Liverpool have gone over in their last 9 fixtures in all competitions. Chelsea in 7 of 9. I think we could maybe even come back the other way. Under 5 is playing at plus 131. That is a big card total for a game like this. We don't typically see when 2 big teams go up against one another. And there's no real rivalry here, Jake. Like, there's nothing that would completely stand out to me about this game. I kind of like opposing what the trend has been and going under the total of 5 at a big juicy number at plus 131. It's being juiced because of the way that they've been playing, but I don't look at either one of these teams being overly cynical, being completely foul prone. So I think you might be able to oppose the trend and get under the total at a decent plus number for this one as well. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, while you were talking there, I had a little look at the referees, and it's John Brooks, and he would have me looking potentially the other way because his card averages have been pretty good. I think it was 4.4 last season, and so far this season is 5.2. So he can dish them out where possible. But I think when it's going to be quite a low-scoring game, I think it's going to be the way in which it's going to play out will probably be conducive to few fouls and few explosive moments from both sets of players, which obviously helps reduce the number of cards. But yeah, I'm just going to sit with the unders. I think the under goals I think is a really really good runner, and I think that while ever the lines are like this for Liverpool in particular, I think they're worth backing because it seems as though the bookmakers are still pricing them as if it's Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool that go out to win every game 5-6-0 or 7-1 or whatever. Whereas this is not the case. This is a team that are more in line with the City and Liverpool that we've seen of recent years that are controlled in victory, kind of play and win in second gear. So yeah, I think while ever we're getting this kind of goal total 3.5, I think it has to be backed.
Just one little correction. It's not Caldwell who's suspended. It's Wesley Fofana ahead of this one. So 2 defenders suspended for Chelsea, but I mean, they have a small army of players that can fill the gaps. So
Yeah.
not that big of an issue for me, just in terms of what that looks like. All right, shall we move on to the rest of the fixture list in the Premier League this weekend? You mentioned Manchester United. Shall we go there? Because no matter where they are on the table, they're the buzz team. Eric Ten Hag survives the window. He's going to remain in charge. Seems like he's going up against one of those bogey teams for him. One of those teams that really doesn't have an answer against in Thomas Frank and Brentford. It's 14th place United hosting 11th place Brentford. But Brentford's coming off a convincing win as United no wins in 5 in all competition. And will we see an actual left back play in their team this weekend? Perhaps, just maybe at the time of recording, we're not sure if Luke Shaw will be available. This was the aim for him to return after the international break, because that for me is the biggest problem with Manchester United. They're lopsided. Diego Dalot is not a left back, and they've been playing without one since January. It's incredible to me that they've allowed this to continue like this. But United heading into this game are a significant favorite heading into this one. What do you make of the line? What do you make of this game? Because I do think there's some value backing the away side in Brentford in this one, at the very least on the handicap.
Yeah, this I mean, it's quite laughable, really, isn't it? The way in which things are going. You have to feel for Ten Hag to some degree because they've had so many
I do.
injuries.
Yes.
They've been decimated for the best part of 18 months now, which means he's not been able to field any kind of strong first choice 11. Yeah, they're just unbackable at the moment. They don't look like they're going to score goals. They're the lowest scorers in the Premier League, which I don't think any of us thought would be the case going into game week 8. And defensively, they still look vulnerable, and even more so now that they're going to be missing another key starter. So, yeah, the play is Brentford in some way, shape, or form, but I don't know if I trust them to go there, get the job done in terms of a victory. I would not be at all surprised to see them avoid defeat, but I just think looking at the markets, the way in which Brentford have been starting games, ridiculously quick, we have to say. I mean, they've scored in the first 5 minutes last 3 matches, so. I think
It's
backing Brentford
ridiculous.
to score first at plus 177, it looks a real runner. I mean, they've scored the first goal in all the last 5 Premier League matches. They scored first at the Etihad. That was the first of those really fast goals. Johan Vissa scored in the first minute, and Buemo scored in the first minute at Spurs. And Buemo scored again in the first minute against West Ham, and against Wolves it was Nathan Collins who scored in the second minute. So.
It's an unprecedented run of form. It's just a matter of whether
Is
this
remarkable.
continues. Like, it's
But
crazy.
this is,
But United's
I
a
just,
team that's conceded early and often this
yeah,
season as
exactly, yeah.
well. So
I mean, Spurs went there and scored very early, didn't they? In that in
I
that
think
three
that
nil
was in the
thrashing.
second minute as well.
Yeah, so I think you're getting plus 177 for Brentford to score first. They don't have to win the game; they don't have to draw the game. They just have to score the first goal. You can actually get a bit more juice if you want to back the first team to score in the first half. You can get plus 252. So for that Brentford goal to come before the half-time whistle, but it just shows you there's all these teams that spend big money. Manchester United being one of them, and then there's these smaller teams that are well run that look to find the small edges, and they've obviously brought in somebody who's taken a good look at kickoffs and thought, well, we can take advantage of the kickoff situations and put pressure on early doors, and it's almost like a set piece. They're treating it like a set piece and a set play, and that's why they're having so much success. So it'll be interesting to see how long it continues. And yeah, they at the moment anyway, they look like they're a better team than Manchester United across the board. They're definitely more stable and more reliable in terms of what 11's going to field, and you could argue they've got more in attack as well. They're showing more in attack anyway.
Yeah. Who's backing United at minus 140? I'd love to meet that person just to pick their brain, because they're unbackable. You said it. They scored once at home in 3 home matches this season. I mean, it's been dreadful. And even their XG, it might be a little bit better, but still, expected goals against is almost double what their expected goals is in terms of their home performances. Brentford, mind you, haven't won. They've 3 losses away from home, but they played at Anfield, at City, and at Spurs. And they scored against both of the latter. By the way, Manchester United, I'm not sure what their 11 is going to look like, Jake. I have no clue. Mazraoui's out now. Ugarte's coming back. Sounds like he's been out of favor anyways, chopping and changing the front 3. No clue what that's going to look like. And oh, by the way, United plays Fenerbahce in the Europa League in a big game away from home against Jose
Mourinho,
Mourinho next week as well.
revenge
So,
game.
and,
Yeah,
and one more thing on this one, just last year, United did beat Brentford 2-1 at Old Trafford, but remember what happened? McTominay,
yeah,
90 plus 3, 90 plus 7 out of nowhere. They were dreadful. United were dreadful in a 1-1 draw at Brentford, maybe their worst performance of the season. So give me Brentford on the handicap, plus 0.75 at even money.
yeah.
I'm taking that all day. That might be my favorite bet of the week. I like your bet as well. I think it makes a lot of sense to bet on Brentford scoring first, but happy with making that play as well. What other play? Is it worthwhile digging into Newcastle Brighton? It's an intriguing game for me. I'm not sure if it makes your board this weekend or not.
No, I don't have anything in Newcastle, so feel free to go in.
Just really quickly, they have identical records, 3-3-1 on the season, joint 6th place, both on 12 points. There's some injuries now in this Brighton side. I do think they're deep and different interesting players can come in, but under Hertzler, they just play wide open football, don't they? They came from behind to beat Spurs 3-2 last time out. I'm going to back the home side here, Newcastle to win and both teams to score at plus 235. That's the way in it for me. Newcastle haven't lost in 3. There's goals in this team, but Isak and Wilson have been out for the last bit. Both may be returning. Keep an eye. It'd be a surprise for me if Isak at the very least doesn't play, and he's a difference maker in this team. Their home games this year, it hasn't been great, but they had that early red card against Southampton and hung on. They drew City 1-1. That's a good result. And the biggest comparable to this game for me, just in terms of game model, would be 2-1, a 2-1 win at home against Spurs. Remember, Spurs just played Brighton to a 3-2 loss. Both teams to score has played in Newcastle's last 5 Premier League games. And Brighton haven't had a clean sheet in 4. I like the way they played. They played over 2.5 in 8 of 10. Both teams to score has played in 5 of 6. And both teams to score has played in Brighton's last 4 in all competitions. By the way, 20 goals combined have been scored over that span. So, and head-to-head, both teams to score has played in 6 out of 7 between these two teams. It was a 1-1 draw in this fixture last season, but the XG was upwards of 4 in that game. So follow the trend. That's the way you get on side with some plus money in this game. Newcastle to win and both teams to score. So what does make your Premier League card? What other games makes your card this weekend, Jake?
Well, the first one is Ipswich versus Everton, and I'm quite surprised how big of a
Follow this.
price Everton are.
Me too.
They're plus 202 to win the game, and we're getting a quarter goal head start on the handicap, and I think taking the handicap is more than worthwhile. It's minus 121 for Everton plus a quarter, and I don't know what's driven this because yes, they got off to a bad start, but they played Brighton, Tottenham, Bournemouth, and Aston Villa, and 2 of those teams finished in the top 5 last season. Bournemouth are a very good team and continue to improve. They were 2-0 up, obviously, and kind of blew that one. But Brighton are a team as well that are going to finish in the top half. So they played good teams and lost all 4. And then since then, they've drawn with Leicester. They beat Crystal Palace, who are down there, and they got a good draw against Newcastle. So, I think that they've turned a bit of a corner. The schedule's eased a little bit for them, and I think they're just a better team than Ipswich. And having Jared Branthwaite back is massive. I don't think we can understate that enough. Like he is probably one of the most important players to that specific team in the league. So having him available is really, really important. And Ipswich, they looked awful at West Ham, conceded over 4 expected goals to a West Ham team that had looked pathetic in attack up until that point. And defensively, they look all over the place. They conceded the most XG in the league. I think they have performed better at home, which is why I think they've lost to Liverpool and drawn the other 2 matches, which is why I'd be looking at taking Everton on the handicap as opposed to the straight win, because I do think the draw is a serious runner. But yeah, I'm more than happy to give Everton another chance. I know we had them against Leicester with a similar play, and they paid out a half win. I think it could be very similar here, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they kicked on now and actually went on a little bit of a run. Now they've got Branthwaite back and got a bit of momentum, so Everton plus a quarter is the bet in that one for me.
My only hesitation on that is is this going to be the week Ipswich at home against a team that they'll feel that they can get something from? This is more psychological than anything that the data shows here, because you're right. Everton would be the play, and that initially stuck out to me as well. Other than that, away at Brentford, at home against Leicester City, it's a big 3-game stretch for Ipswich Town, no doubt about that. Anything else making your card this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to take the unders in Bournemouth versus Arsenal. It's a bet that I've been backing quite a lot when Arsenal have been playing away from home the last 9 months. It's been very successful as well. No surprise why. I mean, Arsenal have been the best defensive team in the league. They probably are the best defensive team in the league. And if you stretch back to the start of last season, 12 of their 22 away matches have gone under 2.5 goals. That will give an implied odds of around minus 122 if you're back in that. And we're currently getting plus 117 for under 2.5 goals. So there looks to be quite a bit of juice in that price, a bit of value. And yeah, on an expected goals perspective, we've conceded just 0.97 XG per game on the travels. And this season, like I said, they've had a very tough away schedule. so far, playing away at Spurs, playing away at City, playing away at Villa. This is also another tough game, and I expect them to kind of approach this in a similar manner. Keep a clean sheet, and then hope for a bit of magic up top. And at Bournemouth, everyone kind of thought they'd be quite high scoring, and they've shown a bit of flashes that could be the case. But they've gone under 2.5 in 4 of their 7, and 2 of the 3 home games have gone under 2.5 as well. So I do think another unders could be on the card. And like I said, the line is at 2.75 on Pinnacle, but I'm going to drop it a quarter of a goal to get that bit extra value, and take it's a plus 117 for under 2.5 goals, and so I'm going to back that one.
All right, Arsenal's been very good against Bournemouth in recent vintage as well. Just a recommendation, keep an eye on the injury report. A number of players have come into question just in terms of their fitness for Arsenal, which may play into a little bit more of a safe approach. This side is where they are and as good as they are because of their defensive work. So it makes a lot of sense to back the unders in that. Anything else as the list continues on, all the plays?
No, that's it for me in the Premier League. Let's move on to Europe, unless you've got something else up your sleeve.
I have one absolute play I'm making, and one I want to ask you a question about really quickly. If you're any Wolves game, okay, you're backing the goals because this team defensively is absolutely atrocious. They take on Man City at the Molineux this weekend. I like both teams to score and a Man City win. Also, second time I'm making a play like that this weekend at plus 175. Wolves 9 goals scored, 21 conceded already. Both teams to score has played in 6 of 6. The over has played over 2.5 in 5 of 5. They've lost 5 games in a row. I look at this team, they're okay in attack the way they play. They're just dreadful defensively. Recent results, 5-3 Brentford, 2-1 Liverpool, 2-1 Villa, 2-1 Newcastle. Like, this is just the way that they play. Like, it's 3-1 Villa, sorry, 2-1 Newcastle. Man City, by the way, this is the thing. Both teams to score in 4 of 5 overall. They haven't lost in 12. They win games, but in the Premier League, Jake, 3-2 Fulham, 1-1 Newcastle, 2-2 Arsenal, 2-1 Brentford, 3-1 West Ham, 4-1 Ipswich. Their only clean sheet was the first game of the season against Chelsea. And head-to-head, I mean, the both teams to score played both times last season. It was a 2-1 and a 5-1. Wolves have scored in 5 of their last 6 trips to the Molineux for Man City. The only time that Wolves didn't score against City at home was in 2022 when Collins was sent off in the 33rd minute. They didn't score that game. That was it. So I don't know if you have a reason why City continues to concede, but this is an issue with Pep Guardiola's side. Like, they lose Rodri in the middle of the park. That's a big loss. They lose Nathan Ake, but they concede such cheap goals as well that I'm just going to continue playing them not to come away with a clean sheet, even when they go play a poor team like Wolves. I still think that Wolves can score in this game, so there's a decent enough play to be made there. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that or City defensively and their potential frailties just in terms of conceding cheap goals.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it a lot that they have a problem in transition when smothering teams, getting caught on the break. They do that quite often. They do struggle with dealing with that. But I also think it's just the nature of the league and the way in which the league's gone. We've gone away from sitting deep and just hanging on. And there's a lot more teams that are opening up and actually having a go at City. We saw Fulham go to the Etihad and rack up over 2 expected goals, and not all of that was from fast counters. And I think Wolves are another team who have that similar kind of approach that we don't care who we're playing. This is how we're playing. We're going to play front foot. We're going to be quite open. Yes, we might be easy to play against, but we're also going to cause problems for you. And that ultimately is leading to a lot of goals for both teams. But yeah, just a quick word on Wolves, because I mean, if you look at their schedule, whoever's done the fixtures just must not be a Wolves fan. They must be the opposite. They must be a West Brom fan, because they've come out the blocks with Arsenal, Chelsea, then they had a bit of respite with Forest, Newcastle, Villa, Liverpool, and away at Brentford, which we know is quite a tough game. So they've had a really daunting schedule, and then they get to play Man City as well after this break. So yes, they're bottom of the league. They've conceded 21 goals, but they have had the toughest schedule of any team in the Premier League so far. So, I mean, I don't know if there's enough there for Gary O'Neill to turn it around when they get a kind of run of fixtures, because obviously the pressure on those easier games is going to be even higher, so makes it even more tough. But
I still
yeah,
think
just something to note.
I don't think they'll be relegated. I think they have enough in attack. Like there's some good players in that team, but they need to sort out
Yeah,
that the center back scenario when he doesn't play a back three. It's a nightmare. They're wide open, and that's
yeah.
what needs to change when it comes to this group.
And
Really,
and the other thing, just finally, because Wolves, I've said their schedule's been awful.
yeah,
We're 7 games into the season. They've played pretty much all the teams that you'd expect to finish in the top seven,
no,
and they're only 3 points from safety.
no, yeah,
So it could have been a lot worse. Yeah.
there's a lot of other bad teams in the Premier League as
Oh
well.
yeah.
Want to pick your brain really quickly on Monday Night Football as well. It's Forest and Palace. Reason is it's the lowest goal line of the weekend. When you see this in the Premier League, 2.25. Like other leagues across Europe, this might be standard fare, but for the Premier League, this is low. Look, Forest have only gone over the total of 2.5 once this season. It was a 2-2 draw against Brighton. Palace have done it 3 times. I know that they played to under 2.5 in their last 4 meetings, but both these sides have enough in them. They play a style where you have to think that goal line, the goal total set a little bit low in this game, isn't it? Like, can you talk yourself into making a play on the overs in this one?
Uh, Not particularly, no.
I think
No.
there's a
I
play to be
think
made there. I just do based upon the way that these teams play. Palace is not an underside. They're just not, Jake. And you've even spoken about the way that this Nottingham Forest team has kind of transformed over the last 10, 11 months.
yeah, but you look at Forest's underlying data, and they've been a fine margin team so far this season, and they've created just over 1.1 expected goal for per game, and allowed just over 1.1 or around 1.1 expected goals against
Some
per game
tough
as well.
games.
So yeah, they have, and I think the way in which Palace is kind of a similar, exactly the same kind of approach, but slightly more negative. So I think that this is going to be a bit of a defensive struggle, to be honest. I think that the pressure that's now mounting on Crystal Palace, the way in which they've started the season, they're going to have to just start grinding out points anywhere they can, really, because they've had a couple of winnable games and fallen well short. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a 0-0, to be honest.
All right, we've gone heavy on
Head to head,
the Premier League. What we can do a head to head there, sure. Add it to the
you get
ledger.
over, I'll take the under.
I'm happy to continue to boost my lead in the head to head this season. I'm not sure if that's official, but that's the way that it's working in my head. By the
I think
way,
this might be the first head-to-head of the season,
all
actually.
right, all right, out of the gate. Last season didn't end well for yours truly. A reminder: all
Yeah.
of the markets that we're dealing with are courtesy of Pinnacle. Bet smart. Bet Pinnacle. All right, we went heavy on the Premier League. Let's do the rest of Europe. Let's start in La Liga this weekend. Anything catching your eye?
Yeah, it might be my favourite bet of the weekend. It's Atletico Madrid against Leganes, and I'm taking Atletico win to nil at -112. I expected it to be around -130, just for a few, expected goal numbers out there. Best defensive team in the league so far is Atletico Madrid, just
Yeah.
0.86 expected goals against per game. That number drops to 0.58 in their 4 home matches. And those 4 games have included matches against 2 of last season's top 3, Real Madrid and Girona, so 2 good attacking teams. And then you've got Leganes, who are the worst attacking team in La Liga, generated just 0.77 expected goals for per game. And away from home, that figure drops to 0.65. And they've not even played a good team yet, so it's not looking good for Leganes. They played Osasuna, Valladolid, Betis, Getafe, and Rayo Vallecano. So this is the first trip to a big side, and they've already shown that they can't create any chances. So win to nil, -112. This is my favourite bet of the week.
Yeah, I'm backing that. Well, not that bet, but Atletico Madrid on the handicap, 1.5 goals here. I'm fine with that at +110 for all the aforementioned reasons. It's a get things right game. I think it's a good spot for Atleti despite coming out of the international break. 1-1 with Sociedad, 1-1 with Real Madrid, got smashed by Benfica in the Champions League. It's about turning things around, laying a beat down on a bad team at home. I think the context is there for this one to be a little bit of a blowout. Any other plays in La Liga this weekend? I do have one to share as I see you shaking your head. Osasuna, Real Betis, who's got off to a nice start to the season. Both teams to score at -112. Osasuna, both teams to score has played in 5 of 6. 13 of 14 on the season. The fourth most combined goals on the season is courtesy of Osasuna in La Liga. It's 13 goals scored, 14 conceded. That is the fourth most combined goals on the season. And they're the second most home goals in La Liga with 11 scored already. That includes home games. Barcelona 4-2, Las Palmas 2-1, Celta Vigo 3-2. It's been a good trend, both teams to score every game but one. Betis, Lo Celso scored 5 goals already, by the way. They've only scored 8 goals in total in the season, but their XG for Betis, 15.23, almost double what their actual goal total is on the season. So all back to get things right. Osasuna hasn't had a clean sheet in this head-to-head in their last 10. Both teams to score in 5 of 7. 3 of the last 4 meetings have gone both teams to score as well. And the only one that didn't, an early sending off for Osasuna, a 2-0 loss last season to Betis. So that's a decent enough number for me to make a play. That's all for La Liga for me. Couple big fixtures in Serie A this weekend. Juventus, Lazio, Roma, and Inter. Either one of those games catch your eye, Jake?
Um, Not really, no. I was half tempted with the goal total in the Juve Lazio game because Lazio have been very good for goals this season, very good for creating chances as well. But it's Juventus, it's a big-ish kind of game, so we know what their approach is going to be. And then, yeah, again, I was half tempted with Inter to win at Roma, but looking at their underlying data, they've actually not been as impressive as you'd expect, or as I expected anyway. I mean, so far this season, they only rank as the 6th best team based on expected points, which is a huge concern for them moving forward. Yeah, Roma, they've quite a few games into a managerial change now, so they'll probably just be finding their feet. So yeah, nothing official from me there, but yeah, I think if I was to have a small play, it would be looking at the over 2.25 at Lazio.
See, I'm going to go with the team that I trust in the better side in both games. I like Juve straight up to win at home here, plus 107. A win in 3 draws at home this season isn't great. Lazio's underlying data is pretty good, but their away form hasn't been great. Lost 2-1 to Fiorentina, Udinese, both away from home. They've done really well in terms of their home play, and that's where things look better for them. Head-to-head, 4 straight wins at home for Juve over Lazio, no losses in 7. So I'm just going to back the better team here at a plus number. Same thing goes. I'm still not convinced by Roma quite yet. So I'll back Inter at minus 113, the better team in this game. Roma went to Monza last time out. It was a 1-1 draw. They lost to Elfsborg away from home in the Europa League. Like, they came up with a couple wins, including a 3-0 against Udinese. It looked like they were turning things around, but I don't trust this Roma side. And anytime I can get Inter on side at minus 113, I will make that play against that mediocre Roma side for me, even away from home. Also, it's our standard fare on this program as well. Atalanta overs. They travel away from home. Venezia this weekend, 2.75. The market still hasn't adjusted quite enough, Jake, because they have the best XG at 16.98 and the joint most goals in Serie A as well. And their opponent this weekend have gone over in 3 of 4, 3 of their last 4 games as well. I wonder what it's going to take. I know it's Serie A and the totals are seemingly lower, but Atlanta's an overplay every week. So I'm assuming that you're going to get on side with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's got the Jake seal of approval right there. Like you said, it's just back it every week. I mean, if you'd have backed it every week so far, you'd have been well in profit. With Atalanta's games averaging 4.1 per game, 4.1 goals. So, yeah, I think, like you said, whenever it's below 3, it's almost an automatic play.
Quick thought on the Bundesliga before we wrap up. 2 big games in particular this weekend. Bayer Leverkusen and Eintracht Frankfurt should be a really good game. Bayern Munich hosting Stuttgart. Both those games are played on Saturday. The thing that jumps out for me here, because, I mean, Bayern Munich's at minus 278 for a win. Leverkusen minus 220. Competition decent this weekend. It's the totals. 3.5 in the Leverkusen match, 3.75 the total in the Stuttgart match. I'm having a real problem because these games seemingly are going over each and every week, but it's like tempting fate a little bit because the markets have been juiced so much in terms of the totals. I just wonder what your thoughts are this and how you go about navigating making plays when it comes to the total.
Yeah, it's tricky when they're so high, but as we know, the Bundesliga is one of the well, is the highest scoring league in Europe on a consistent basis. And ultimately, the way in which they set up in Germany is attack, attack, attack. I mean, there's very few teams that set up with a kind of, as you would guess you would call it, like an Everton style, where it's more look to be solid and then hit on the counter attack and win score goals from set pieces. I think Union Berlin are probably the closest to that and have been over the last few years. But they are very much a unicorn in that regard. It's very, very open style of football. And yeah, it is always daunting to back such a high goal line, but when you've got teams with such firepower and such attacking mindsets, it's very difficult not to get on board. I mean, I won't be making any official plays here, but just for context, Stuttgart's games so far this season have averaged not just goals, but this is 3.7 expected goals per game. So it's not even just goals, which obviously is generally usually higher than expected goals. And Frankfurt's have averaged 3.6 expected goals per game. Leverkusen's at 3.33. So the chances that are being coughed up in these games featuring these teams are just huge. And it is 100%. You can understand why the lines are set as they are. I think now that the line in the Munich Stuttgart games actually moved, it's gone higher. It was 3.5. It's now up to 3.75. I think I would be
Yeah.
looking at taking the under there, just because of the way Bayern Munich have played their opening two home league games. They've both gone under 2.5 goals. I think it was a 2-0 win and a 1-1 draw. So I would probably be looking at making an unders play in that one. But the Leverkusen Frankfurt, I mean that could be absolute helter-skelter all over the gaff, as many goals as you can think of, really, the way in which Leverkusen set up and play. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Like I say, if I was to make a small play, it would be the under 3.75 in the Munich game. But yeah, it's always going to be a tough watch cheering on unders in a Bundesliga match.
No, that's the thing, because my intuition is to bet under, and then I just pause and hesitate. I'm like, I just can't do it. Like Frankfurt played Bayern Munich to a 3-3. It could have been 5-5. It's like a basketball game. It's very hard for me to make a play there. I was considering making a play on Eintracht Frankfurt on the handicap. I think they're a decent enough side. Leverkusen hasn't been the team last year. They're playing again in the Champions League this week. Rather straightforward fixture against Brest, or at least it should be. If they were playing a tougher competition, I think I'd make that play, but it's going to be a little bit of a watch and brief for me in the Bundesliga this weekend. I want to get in on the totals. They're just so high right now. It's making it very difficult to make that play. Good stuff, Jake. We'll be back next week. It's good to be back from vacation, and it's good to have you, the viewer, involved as well. Leave comments in the chat on YouTube. Like, subscribe. We appreciate your feedback. If you have any questions, we'll try to get much more active in that area as well, answering any questions that you have once this video is posting. If you're listening on podcast form, thank you very much. Once again, like, subscribe, tell your friends. We're here each and every week dealing with the biggest domestic matches in world football. Good stuff, Jake. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Enjoy the football.
He is Jake Osgathorpe. I am Gareth Wheeler. This has been episode 7 of Pinnacle FC.